Many of us think of silence as boring. We think of silence as something to be avoided at all costs. We think of those pauses or those moments where there isn't really anything happening as painful. The reality is, silence is revealing. Silence shows us the very things that we are running from. And often they're not things that we're running from in the world. They're things that we're running from in ourselves. And how can any of us hope to do our best work if in the moments where the best work happens, there is an avoidance? How can any of us hope to move forwards with our lives in a way that transforms them if the very moment which transforms is avoided? As we come towards the end of the year, or the second half of the year, all of the growth which we have seen in the spring and the summer months starts to recede and decay, and we're left again with the bare structures of nature. We're reminded that in those months the harvesting has happened, the reaping of the fruit has happened, and that often there is an opportunity for us to plant something new for next year's crop. However, we also can recognize that whilst the trees may not be showing their leaves, they're still putting down roots. They're still growing on the inside. And we may always not appear to be growing, but there is always change. There is always some kind of movement happening beneath the surface. But when we avoid the silence, when we avoid those moments where nothing appears to be going on, we can never really get to the depth of what's truly happening. And in these moments, we get to see that maybe things aren't as bad as we think they are. Or that maybe there is something asking for our attention if only we would listen to it. And perhaps that thing that's asking for our attention can move us in a direction far more constructive than the one our minds seek to move us in. I've spent a lifetime running from my silence, or running from the silence inside of me, because I've always been afraid of what would be revealed. I've always been afraid of what I may discover about myself, which I wouldn't want other people to know. Or that maybe I'd have to come to terms with the fact that I'm not as good as I take myself to be. I'm not as capable, that there is some kind of inherent limitation built into my system which I just have to get used to and settle. But the thing is, when I listen, when I allow the silence to be there, and increasingly over the years as I've become familiar with this, what's actually true is that that voice which carries with it the promise of discovering something bad dissolves. It's observed rather than taken as truth. and my relationship with that voice starts to change. You see, I can't create anything of meaningful value in this world if the only listening I have is a listening to the noise in my head, which for the most part is unhelpful. It's a reflection of the echoes of my family or cultural or social conditioning. And most of the time those things aren't particularly helpful. Not because anyone intends for them to be so, but because there is a unique expression of life waiting to form itself in me that wants to find its way out into the world. And all the while I'm paying attention to what's being told to me, the things I've accepted as true without question, then I'm denying this voice. And so there's an opportunity for all of us, especially now, in the increasingly noisy world that we live in, to place ourselves into a moment of silence and to observe, perhaps, just how noisy things are on the inside. But to know if the noise is something we can observe, then it's also something that we're separate from. To know that the voices which may echo inside you are not original to you, and that by acknowledging their existence, but not giving them power, by not attaching meaning to them or giving them a story which needs to be resolved, simply just allowing them to be there, what may happen, and you must find this out for yourself, is that you will start to discover a deeper foundation from which your life can grow. You will find a deeper place within you from which a different kind of thinking can emerge. The original thought, the thought which is original to you, not something which has been put there by somebody else, but something which speaks to you and you alone. And some people may call that intuition, some may call it wisdom, some may call it inspiration, and some may call it the voice of God. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you call it, but it's there. And for the most part, for many of us, it's something which arises in the moments when we're unprepared, when the mind, for whatever reason, sees something it can either not comprehend or it's just too grand, too beautiful for the mind to even cast an opinion on it. Or in those moments of emergency where critical action is required and the mind goes, I don't know what to do here. Something else comes through us. Yeah, that's inspired. That's original. But rather than waiting for those moments, we can cultivate them in silence. And I understand and I acknowledge that there are a vast majority of you out there who simply are unwilling to do that. And that's okay. It's okay to think of silence or to think of doing nothing as unconstructive. There is no judgment for this. I used to think that. And at times I still do. I find myself waking up in the mornings and the first thing I reach for is my phone. Or I find myself in moments of quiet and I'll start to think about things I may be able to buy or eat or read or watch. And there is a time and a place for all of those things. But if it's done habitually to distract me from what's in here, then the opportunity for me to more readily and consistently connect to that place inside me where original thought can come is obstructed. And the good news is, however long any of us have been paying attention to what isn't original, to what's been given to us, to our inheritance which we haven't necessarily asked for, however long that's been there, all of us have the ability, irrespective of age or condition or circumstance, to listen, to sit and observe in that silent space what's really going on beneath the surface, to resolve the tensions without the long-held belief that we need some kind of therapeutic intervention. And people have known this for thousands and thousands of years, yet we have lost sight of this. And we have to return to it. Whether we like it or not, silence is at the end of our journey through this life. When the body and the mind come to their end, and we move to the next realm if there is such a thing. And the mind knows this, which is why so many of us fear silence, because silence is synonymous with death. But to willingly embrace silence, whilst you have the opportunity, is to willingly embrace death. Not the physical death, not the end of one's life, but the end of one's interpretation of life. And when your interpretation of life stops, then the reality of life, as it appears, without preference or condition or judgment, can make itself known. And this is where the beautiful life begins. This is where everything that we seek begins to make itself apparent in this moment, without us having to buy something or get somewhere or be someone else. It's all here available to us and always has been. But we get lost behind judgment and judgment and judgment and condition and blame, pointing the finger at somebody else, making them responsible for how we feel and the conditions of our lives, rather than to recognize that in the silence all things can be reformed, including the decisions we make moving forwards and the person we take ourselves to be. All of these things can be changed many times and many times over. And so I sit here today recording this video to share with you, to invite you into the silence, as I myself am doing the very same. And I sit here with my notepad and I reflect on the life I have lived and the person I have been and shown up as, on account of the things I have believed and taken to be true about myself and about the world, which are not original to me, and to then consider the things which are original to me. Interestingly, they do appear to be polar opposites. The world would have us believe we are insignificant. The world would have us believe we are powerless to make change or change ourselves. The world would have us believe that our voice is irrelevant, that no one cares for it, that we are forever unheard, never good enough, always striving for something which seems to be just beyond our reach. But the reality is, none of those things are true. They are true to the degree which they are believed, yes. But in the silence, when they dissolve, you will come to discover that none of those things are absolute, which means all of life is up for grabs. All of life can be lived on a different set of terms than the ones you have accepted without question. In the silence, the question may arise, if I am not these things, then who am I? And I have good news. It's up to you to define. It's up to you to live in that definition, to see a different world which responds to a different you. And this may take time. There may be a period of transition, as there is with all change. But know, over and over and over again, you can relearn yourself. You can return to the silent space and be reminded of who you are in essence, which is all possibility, unlimited, whole and healthy. And whilst your physical world and your body may not reflect these things now, they can. But it all begins in silence. It all begins at the foundation of creation, which is unformed, and all of us are here to bring forth something from the unformed space into this world that we see. Including you.